And during the last part of the Nevada debate, Chuck Todd, who was one of the moderators, asked the candidates what they thought about a scenario in which one candidate has the most delegates, but not quite enough to clinch the nomination. And here's the question and the candidates' responses.
There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention to clinch this nomination. Okay? If that happens, I want all of your opinions on this. Should the person with the most delegates at the end of this primary season be the nominee, even if they are short of a majority? Senator Sanders, I'm going to let you go last here because I know your view on this. So instead, I will start with you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Whatever the rules of the Democratic Party are, they should be followed. And if they have a process, which I believe they do,
I'm trying to do
so
this,
that
yes or no,
everybody else, everybody can.
So you want the convention to work its will?
Yes.
Senator Warren.
But a convention working its will means that people have the delegates that are pledged to them, and they keep those delegates until you come to the convention. All of the people.
All righty. Vice President Biden?
Play by the rules.
Yes or no? Leading person with the delegates, should they be the nominee or not?
No, let the process work its way out.
Mayor Buttigieg?
Not necessarily. Not to listen.
Senator Klobuchar?
Let the process work.
Senator Sanders?
Well, the process includes 500 superdelegates on the second ballot. So I think that the will of the people should prevail. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Most votes should become the nominee.
5 no's and a yes.
All right, so a lot of no's and a yes. Bernie Sanders, the only one saying that, yeah, if you have the most delegates, you should win. Everyone else was saying, no, we should respect the process. Now, what does that actually mean? What does letting the process play out, as Biden said, means? It means a brokered convention. That is something that hasn't happened since 1952. Now, according to the rules, if one candidate has the most delegates but doesn't get 50% of the delegates, right, the superdelegates will come in for round 2 and get to choose the nominee. Now, they don't have to do it respective of the wishes of the voters of their states that they come from. These 500 superdelegates can come in, and if they decide, you know what, even though Bernie Sanders has the most delegates, he's got 39% of all the delegates, right? I don't care. I'm going to choose Amy Klobuchar. And then now Klobuchar is the nominee. I mean, that's an insane system. But that's exactly the system that every single one of these candidates, save for Bernie Sanders, says we should have. Even Elizabeth Warren. That is deeply, deeply depressing. And so, and not only is it deeply depressing, it shows that they support a deeply undemocratic process. Disastrous. Now, it should be, as Bernie explains, the person who gets the most votes, therefore the most delegates, wins the most states, should win the nomination. Instead, we have a system where we're going to let unelected superdelegates who are not bound to state results to decide the election. And that, again, is disastrous. And so there's a lot of response to this. I'm going to go to Kyle Kolinsky here on Twitter. He puts it pretty succinctly. Stunning middle finger to democracy in the Democratic base. Inexcusable, and the definition of authoritarian. No, he's right. Not only that, but you had a former Democratic candidate, Marianne Williamson. She also spoke out. She said, quote, "The Democratic Party should be on notice if you even think about using superdelegates to take the nomination from someone who has the plurality of delegates going into Milwaukee. We, the people, will not take it lying down." Those are strong words from Marianne Williamson. So she is definitely on Bernie's side when it comes to this issue of superdelegates. Now, Benjamin Dixon, who is a journalist here and a friend of the show, says it's almost like immediately after everyone realized that Bloomberg was an incompetent overlord, they collectively decided to go to Plan C to stop Sanders. Plan C being contested convention. Same rules apply. You steal democracy from us. We steal your power from you by refusing to vote. And that's ultimately what he's been saying and what a lot of people are saying, right? You use the superdelegates to undermine democracy, then what's the point of engaging in democracy? And so that's dangerous because the whole idea of a brokered convention not only is, again, super undemocratic, it makes people very, very angry, but can be used to depress turnout for Bernie Sanders. And so that is super disastrous. But I think that is part of the plan and part of the reason why so many of people are still in this race as well. And so I've got more responses here from progressives. Beth, purity test enthusiast, which I love that, says, hey, DNC, get one thing straight right now. If you're planning to steal the nomination from Bernie with superdelegates, you can count on every Bernie supporter staying home in the general and having 4 more years of Trump. You think we're playing? F around and find out. More. Gallifreyan Jedi says, I'll never vote for Trump, but if Bernie rolls into the convention with the most delegates and doesn't get the nod, what I will do is spend every day from then till November attacking the Democratic nominee as hard as I can. And then I'm writing in Bernie Sanders. Understand that if this happens, if they undermine democracy, it's going to be the end of the Democratic Party. There are people out there that are like, no, burn it down. That's it. We've had it. Your superdelegates have screwed us, screwed democracy, screwed the will of the people. We have nothing left. We owe this party nothing. Understand that that is their message. And so if this is what the DNC is going to try to do, it shows that they don't believe in democracy. Now, to underpin that, by the way, yesterday, and you might have missed it, the Washington Post published an opinion piece by somebody who argued that the primaries should be even less democratic. Funny how that comes out as soon as Bernie Sanders wins, right? And takes sizable leads in the polls and becomes the front runner, right? Now, this person writing in the Washington Post promotes something called a preference primary. Now, what is that? Really quickly, I'll summarize. A preference primary is basically like a normal primary. However, it is non-binding, the results of it. So say Bernie Sanders wins your preference primary. Now, since it's non-binding, that preference goes up to the elites, the party elites, who then will decide if they will take your preference into consideration. But what if their preference is a centrist moderate, someone like Pete Buttigieg? Well, they can decide, I don't care about the will of the people. Yes, the preference in this primary, for example, maybe Bernie Sanders gets 36% of the vote in the preference primary, and Buttigieg, gets 10%. Basically, the polling that you have now. I don't care about your preference. I like Buttigieg. So guess what? He's going to win the nomination. He's going to win the primary. Preference primary. That's exactly what they're arguing against democracy. So if you think that these people are going to try to follow the will of the people and their preferred candidates and policies, hell no. You're going to have a centrist moderate who offers zero change and is going to get mauled by Donald Trump. Now remember here, the goal isn't just to get rid of Donald Trump. It's to stop the conditions that create him in the first place and will ultimately create a more effective and dangerous Trump. We have to honor the will of the people. And by the way, I took a personal poll here on my own channel of you guys. And so I want to share the results so far with 2,400 votes. And the voting is still open on this, right? I asked, if there's a brokered convention and the superdelegates decide to take the nomination away from the candidate who has the plurality of votes, therefore the most votes, would you still vote for that nominee in the general election? I think that's an important question. 23% of you said yes. 14% of you said no. And the third option, burn down the DNC or burn it all down, came in with 63%. Look, it's not exactly scientific, but I'm just asking you guys. And overwhelmingly, if this happens, if Bernie Sanders gets cheated out of the nomination by the superdelegates, there's a lot of people that are looking to riot. So DNC, you're on notice. Do not try to mess with us. It will not end well for anyone. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.